Hello everybody, it's Mr. Grest here. Welcome back after half term. I hope you had a good week. This week's question is on answering a 9-mark question. We're going to try and give you a guide of how to get full marks. Now, if we remember, there's a structure that we need you to follow for answering a 9-mark question or 3 and 4-mark questions. And if you look at the bottom, the way you're assessed on these is AO1, AO2, AO3. Now, AO1 is demonstrating knowledge or recalling a fact about the question that you've been asked. AO2, we start to apply that fact that we've just come up with and apply it to the question that's been asked. And AO3, we're looking at evaluating and analysing and making a judgment on how performance is impacted. So if you look at the top question about the red blood cells, this question will be something on the lines of evaluate the importance of the cardiovascular system to a marathon runner. So the first thing we do, a part of the cardiovascular system, is red blood cells. So just by stating that red blood cells carry oxygen in the blood, all we're doing there is recalling a fact, and that is going to actually pick us up 1 mark. Now, if we go into the AO2, the application of that knowledge, what we're now going on to say is an increase in red blood cells would result in more oxygen being transported to the working muscle. So we're taking that knowledge of red blood cells and applying it to the marathon runner. And the evaluation and the judgment, we go on to say, which would allow the marathon runner to work at a high intensity for longer and finish the race in a shorter time. We're kind of bringing that to how it affects the marathon runner and getting an AO3. So that will give us 3 marks. And what we need to do for a 9-mark question is repeat that process 3 times. Now, looking at the question we're going to go at, Eric is a 100-metre sprinter. He trains regularly using fartlek training, plyometrics and sprint interval training. Evaluate the likely effects of these training methods on Eric's fitness for sprinting and his sprint performance, and it's worth 9 marks. Now, the first thing we need to do with 9-mark questions is highlight key points that we need to talk about. And the first thing, we're clearly going to talk about fartlek training, about plyometric training, about sprint interval training. And the second thing we need to consider is what we're doing with that knowledge. And what we're doing is we're evaluating how those training methods affect Eric's sprinting performance. Okay, so if we get into how we're answering this question, the first thing we need to do is demonstrate the knowledge. So the way we can do this is if we put something on lines of fartlek training involves running at different speeds or on different terrains, that's going to pick us up 1 mark. So here we're recalling knowledge, we're demonstrating our knowledge of fartlek training. Plyometric training involves explosive movements like hopping and jumping. So we've recalled knowledge on what the second component of fitness is, and we've come up with that. Now what I'd like to do is get a pen and a sheet of paper, and I'd like to have a go at writing a short statement about what interval training is, along the same lines as I've done there with fartlek and plyometric training. And I'd like to pause the video now and then spend a couple of minutes writing that down. Okay, if we move on to AO2, we're looking at applying that knowledge that we've talked about. So we remember what we've said is fartlek training involves running at different speeds or on different terrains, and that's picked us up 1 mark. If we follow up that statement by saying fartlek training would improve cardiovascular endurance, which wouldn't be of use to the sprinter, now we're applying a little bit of knowledge to fartlek training. Plyometric training involves explosive movements like hopping and jumping. We've already picked up the mark for that. But we go on to say that plyometric training would improve power, which helps Eric accelerate at the start of the race. We're getting a 2nd mark for that point. Now, once again, I'd like to go back to your opening statements about interval training and have a go at writing an application about what impact interval training would have on Eric during his race. And again, I'd like to pause the video now and have a go at writing that. Okay, as we move on to AO3, analysis, evaluation, and coming up with a judgment, again, we've got the first 2 statements we've made about fartlek training. Now, we can then finish that by saying focusing on cardiovascular endurance could slow the runner down, so it's of little value. So what we're saying is fartlek training is not of great value to this sprinter because of the intensity he's running at. Again, with plyometric training, we're following up the 2 previous comments by saying having more acceleration could allow Eric to win the race, so plyometrics is very important. So if he gets out the blocks fast, he's going to win the race. Now, once again, what I'd like you to do is finish off your little paragraph by having a go at writing an evaluation about what impact interval training would have on Eric. And once again, I'd like to pause the video now whilst you do that, please. Okay, so now you can check your answers. So this is a sample mark scheme, so it doesn't have to be word for word for what I've written, but what I'd like you to do is see if we can come up with different things. Now, AO1 for interval training, if you've written something along the lines that interval training involves high intensity work followed by periods of rest, we're going to get 1 mark because we're saying what interval training is. For the AO2 mark, Interval training would increase speed, so we're bringing in the components of fitness that's important. So it allows Eric to complete the race in a faster time. That's his AO2, that's the application of that. And for the evaluative mark, speed being the most important aspect of a 100-metre race, so interval training is the most important method of training. So you can now assess the paragraph that you've written and see if it looks something like that. So you can give yourself a mark out of 3. And remember, in the question that we're going to do, we're going to write 3 statements like that. What we think is easier for you to do is to start your question with a paragraph, write it combining the 3 simple statements. So you can see there what I've done, I've combined the simple recall statements on fartlek training, plyometric training and interval training. By doing that, if you get them right and you get your descriptions right, you're picking up 3 marks out of 9, which is actually higher than the national average. So just 3 simple recalls gets you 3 marks out of 9. We then follow it up by putting your AO2 and AO3 marks together in separate paragraphs. So we do a paragraph on fartlek training, again where I've combined it there, a fartlek on plyometric, a paragraph on plyometric training, which I've combined my points there, and a paragraph on interval training, which you can see I've combined there. Now, this response would have received 9 marks out of 9, and you can see it's not a huge amount of writing. So we need to sort of do away with the fact that you think that for 9-mark question we need to write lots and lots and lots. Now it's your turn. So again, we're looking at a previous exam paper from the same year, so June 2018, and this question is about canoeing, and it's looking about strength, flexibility and speed. There are 3 fitness tests shown, so we've done fitness tests during the PEP, looking at the sit and reach test, the 30-metre sprint and the 1-minute press-up test, and the question now is to discuss the suitability of using the fitness test shown in Table 6 to assess the fitness of a canoeist for their sport. So it's a 9-mark answer, so what I'd like you to do is use the same process, and now you're on your own. It's we're going to write those 3 simple statements and see if we can develop each statement in a 9-mark question. Once you've completed this task on either Google Doc or handwritten, we would like to upload it to the task on Show My Homework for your teacher to read, give you feedback and advice. If there's any part of the question that you're struggling with, then remember, rewind this to an earlier part of the tutorial so you can see how it's answered. But we do look forward to receiving the work. We hope you stay safe and we look forward to seeing you back in school soon. Take care. Goodbye.